You're listening to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast. Remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, and click the bell to make sure you get the latest episodes of the podcast. Be sure to like and share our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter and on Instagram. Now, let's preview the ICC T20 World Cup for 2024 and go all through all 20 teams' squads and talk about their chances of winning the T20 World Cup for 2024. So there's a lot to talk about, lot to discuss. So do bear with us as we try and navigate our way through all the teams and all the squads to talk about their chances in this T20 World Cup. But I thought to start off, this preview, I thought we talk about the associate nations and their chances in this T20 World Cup, because obviously the reason the T20 World Cup was 20 teams in this edition is to ensure the growth and development of the game around the world and to give associate countries around the world an opportunity to participate in a T20 World Cup, to make it easier for them to enter the tournament and to pretty much gain experience, grow and develop as cricketers and teams. So basically I thought we'll talk about them in a separate section to the other teams, of course, the full members. So let's talk about the associate countries in depth and about their chances of performing and winning games in this T20 World Cup, which is what it's all about. And obviously the associate nations competing in this T20 World Cup will be relishing the challenge to compete against the world's best teams. Out of the associate countries participating in this World Cup, three playing their first ever T20 World Cup. Obviously that's the USA, Canada, and Uganda. And Uganda has an amazing story to tell. Obviously, their story to even qualify for this event is an amazing story in itself, and we'll get to that in a minute. So pretty much those countries I mentioned, first time we're seeing them at the T20 World Cup, and we wish them all the best. So let's hope, as I mentioned before, the associate countries can have success in this T20 World Cup, learn a lot, develop. Obviously, playing against the world's best teams, it's a great opportunity for all of them to learn and develop and really grow as a cricket team, but also develop and inspire the next generation of cricketers from their country to take up cricket. So let's go through each of the teams and talk about their chances. We'll start with the co-hosts, USA, of course. We'll start with them and talk about their chances and what can we expect from them. Now, pretty much for the USA, with the ICC and cricket trying to really push the growth and development of cricket in the States, we've been doing that since the dawn of time. Throughout the years in the game of cricket, throughout the history of the game, there are many people that have tried to convince many Americans to play cricket over the years. Some succeeded, some failed. This T20 World Cup and with the Olympics in 2028 in LA, will it be a pivotal moment in terms of growing and developing the sport in the United States? Now, with the USA, all eyes are on the USA. They're the co-hosts with the West Indies for this T20 World Cup. They didn't have to qualify. They qualified automatically being a co-host alongside of the West Indies. And as I mentioned before, can they inspire the USA public to get behind them and get interested in cricket? That's the big question really going to come out of this T20 World Cup once the tournament finishes, is will that be the ideal outcome for the game in America? Now, as we know, Americans can be very patriotic. Any sport that America takes part of, rest assured that the Americans will be back in their team. So hopefully that's the case for America in this T20 World Cup. And hopefully we do see some American fans come through the gates and support their team. For the USA coming into this T20 World Cup, they've got some confidence. Recently, they played a series against Bangladesh, a T20 series in the lead up to this tournament. They won the series 2-1 in the best of three. They won the first two games, and then they lost the last game. So that will definitely give them some confidence going into this T20 World Cup, knowing that, we've beaten Bangladesh for the first time in our history. Obviously, Bangladesh haven't been playing well themselves, but still for the USA, it's a good win to have going into the tournament itself. the question is, can they win a game? That's the question. Can the USA win a game in this tournament? Well, they're in Group A. Group A is a tough group. You've got India, Pakistan, and Ireland, and Canada. Obviously, the USA and Canada have been rivals for years, obviously. Both of those countries played the first ever international game of cricket back in 1844. So their rivalry goes way, way back. Definitely a chance against Canada. Obviously, the first game of the tournament will be the USA and Canada, and that will be in Texas to kick off the tournament proper. So definitely it will be a very tough group to try and win for the USA in terms of games. But you never know. You never know. We'll have to wait and see how they perform across the group stage. It's going to be tough for them to qualify for the Super 8s. I think many people are realistic about that. But still, that's not the point. The point is to, showcase cricket to the American public. And hopefully, that will get people inspired into the game of cricket. So hopefully that's the case as this tournament progresses. So that's a little bit on the USA. We'll move on and talk about Canada. Now, Canada, in their first ever T20 World Cup in 2024, as I mentioned earlier, Canada, they're not strangers to World Cups in cricket. They've been to many one-day World Cups over the years. Actually, they've been to 4 Cricket World Cups in their history, 1979, 2003, 2007, and 2011. So they're not too familiar with the World Cups, Canada. We've seen them over the years perform well and over the World Cups over the years, and they've done okay. And as I mentioned previously, Canada, obviously, one of the oldest teams in cricket, obviously, played the first ever international game of cricket against the USA in 1844. And how fitting that this T20 World Cup would kick off with the USA and Canada to kick off the tournament for the first game. So I can see what the organisers did there. Obviously, going back to the time that they played in 1844. For Canada, can they win a game? That's the question. You would think they can. Obviously, it's going to be tough against India and Pakistan, obviously, but against Ireland and the USA, they've played a lot against them over the years, obviously in the associate world, before Ireland was an associate nation, now a full member. So definitely, yeah, Canada can definitely win a game. So for Canada, it will be interesting to see how they perform, obviously. But can they win a game, as I said before? Possibly. We'll have to wait and see how they go about things there. The Netherlands, let's talk about the Netherlands. The Netherlands, they could qualify for the Super 8s. Group D is the group that the Netherlands are in. They've got South Africa, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, and Nepal to contend with in Group D. And I think they're a likely chance to qualify because at the moment, Sri Lanka and Bangladesh are not playing well. Obviously, the Netherlands have a good record against South Africa. We all know what the Netherlands did to South Africa in the 50-over World Cup last year. And obviously in the T20 World Cup in 2022, they won that game at the Adelaide Oval. So the Netherlands are more than capable of qualifying to the Super 8s. And obviously, we know from the Netherlands, they are capable of pulling out great performances. Obviously, in T20 World Cups, back in 2009, when the T20 World Cup was in England, obviously the Netherlands had that famous victory against England at Lord's, and they won by 4 wickets. So they are more than capable of performing on the world stage, the Dutch, and they are improving. We saw in the T20 World Cup in 2022, also the 50-over World Cup in 2023. The Netherlands are improving year on year. They're probably one of the strongest associate countries in this T20 World Cup, maybe up there with Scotland as one of the 2 strongest teams out of the associate nations in this T20 World Cup. So the Netherlands, for them, I think they're a good chance of going through to the next stage of this T20 World Cup, that's for sure. Obviously, they've got to play well, but what they've done before is really encouraging in terms of performances. And hopefully in this T20 World Cup, they can definitely cause some surprises in Group D, because that will be an interesting group, as we will discuss a bit later on about Group D with Sri Lanka, obviously Bangladesh and South Africa and Nepal. That group could be interesting in terms of causing a few surprises. So definitely the Netherlands are in with a good shout of qualifying there. Let's move on and talk about Oman. Oman, pretty much one of the strongest teams in the Asia region, Oman. Obviously qualified with Nepal from the Asian qualifiers last year to take part in this T20 World Cup this year. Out of the two spots, Oman and Nepal pretty much got those two spots in terms of the qualification for this event. Oman over the years have been playing well, and they've produced some good performances over the years. They're in a tough group. They're in Group B with Australia, England, and Namibia and Scotland. They could win a game, Oman. They may back themselves against Namibia and Scotland. The games against Australia and England are going to be tough, obviously, but if they can be competitive and show some good competitiveness in those games, I think that will be the order of the day. But definitely against Namibia and Scotland, they could win against those two teams, and they could get a win in this tournament. So for Oman, participating in their third World Cup, obviously 2016 was their first T20 World Cup. This one in 2024 is their third. So definitely they've learned a lot from the previous experiences. Hopefully they can come out with some good results and put in a good performance or two in this T20 World Cup. We move on and talk about Namibia. Namibia. What a team Namibia has been in T20 World Cups. Over the last couple of World Cups they participated in, 2021 and 2022, they've done very well. They've performed well in those two T20 World Cups. And they're a nation that's on the rise, Namibia, obviously a country in Africa. Obviously one of the co-hosts for the next 50-over World Cup, which is in 2027. So Namibia and cricket, definitely good things happening over there. As I mentioned with Oman, same with Namibia. Obviously in Group B, they've got Australia and England to contend with, and Scotland, and obviously Oman. So Namibia can win a couple of games, I think. Definitely against Scotland and Oman if they play at their best. Obviously, Australia and England will be a bit of a stretch, but if they can show some good competitiveness and fight, then that will be a good result for them. But definitely they could win some games. They've got a good team and squad that they've selected. They're on the rise. They've been playing some good cricket over the last few years. They can definitely make an impact in this T20 World Cup, that's for sure. Namibia. We move on, talk about PNG, Papua New Guinea, and talk about them. They've been very strong for many years, Papua New Guinea. In the East Asia Pacific region, they've been very strong. They've always dominated world qualifiers for World Cups and all that stuff. It was no surprise that they qualified for this T20 World Cup from the Asia Pacific region. They're very strong, as they have been for a lot of years. And they've got a lot of potential, and they've got players who are well experienced and know what they're doing. For Papua New Guinea, this is their second T20 World Cup. They played their first one in 2021, missed out in 2022, but in 2024, they've got another opportunity. They're in Group C, Papua New Guinea, with the West Indies, New Zealand, Afghanistan, and Uganda. So there's a real opportunity for Papua New Guinea to win a game, most likely against Uganda. The other games with the West Indies, New Zealand, Afghanistan may be a bit challenging for them. But for Papua New Guinea, if they can be competitive, show what they're made of, they can definitely cause some upsets in Group C. That's another group that's going to be quite interesting as well in terms of who's going to qualify for the Super 8 stage. That's definitely another group that is definitely going to be causing a few surprises. But for Papua New Guinea, good to see them back here in the T20 World Cup. One of the strong teams in the Pacific region. Good to see them back, and hopefully they can get some good results in this T20 World Cup. We move on and talk about Uganda. What a story Uganda has been. Uganda, a great achievement to even qualify for this T20 World Cup. They defeated Zimbabwe in the African qualifiers last year. And obviously that was the story of the cricketing world. To be honest, not a lot of people heard about it because of the coverage of associate cricket. A lot of these victories and achievements don't really get talked about quite a lot. But they won against Zimbabwe, and many people thought Zimbabwe could have been in this T20 World Cup this year. Unfortunately for them, they've gone backwards, Zimbabwe. But for Uganda, it's a wonderful story. It's their first ever T20 World Cup. There's no big expectations on Uganda. Obviously, for them, it's just about to go out to this T20 World Cup, have some fun, enjoy the moment, and pick up a few fans along the way in terms of introducing new people to Ugandan cricket. Certainly, a lot of people wouldn't have known a lot about cricket in Uganda, but definitely after this T20 World Cup, I think a lot of people will be taking notice of Uganda in the years to come. They're in Group C as well with Papua New Guinea. They've got the West Indies, New Zealand, Afghanistan, and Papua New Guinea. So for Uganda, as I said, there's no real big expectations on them to win a game, given that they're in a group that, have some very good teams in world cricket, obviously. But for Uganda, it's all about the experience, learning, developing, being accustomed to playing cricket at this highest level. And they thoroughly deserve to be here, absolutely deserve to be here. And what a story Uganda has been. So I'm really going to be interesting to see what they do in this T20 World Cup, Uganda. And we wish them all the best. Nepal, let's talk about Nepal. First T20 World Cup for Nepal since 2014, which was the T20 World Cup in Bangladesh. They're back here 10 years later in 2024. Now, Nepal have been playing well over the last few years. They've been playing well in T20 cricket over the last few years. They're one of the strongest teams in Asia in terms of, the teams in the associate realm. They're one of the strongest teams, obviously, in the associate world when it comes to the Asia region. And not a surprise that they qualified for this T20 World Cup alongside of Oman in the qualifiers last year in Asia. Now, for Nepal, for them, they're in a tough group. Obviously, South Africa, Netherlands, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka. That's in Group D. But Nepal, if they play well, they may cause a few surprises in terms of upsets. Group D, as I've already discussed before, is one of those groups that are going to cause some surprises in this T20 World Cup. It's going to cause some surprises in terms of, that group could go either way in terms of who will qualify for the Super 8. So if Nepal, they can definitely back themselves against Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. The Netherlands, they play a lot against them as well in the associate world. So they definitely got a chance to win a game or two if they really put a complete performance together, Nepal. So let's hope that's the case. But as I said, tough group, but they may cause some upsets and make it difficult for other teams to try and qualify for the Super 8. So it'll be interesting to see how the Nepal team goes. And last but not least, Scotland, to wrap up the associate countries in this T20 World Cup. Now, Scotland, we associate with Scotland with World Cups over the years, 50-over World Cups and T20 World Cups. They produced some good performances here and there. Obviously, in the last T20 World Cup in 2022, they defeated the West Indies in the first round, which pretty much knocked out the West Indies to progress to the Super 12 stage in the World Cup, in the T20 World Cup in 2022. For Scotland, they're in a tough group. They're in Group B. They've got Australia, England, Oman, and Namibia. But they will back themselves to win games in that group. More so with Oman and Namibia. A bit of a test against Australia and England. Obviously, when Scotland plays against Australia and England over World Cups over the years, they haven't done so well against those two teams. So it'll be a bit of a challenge for the Scottish team. But, like with the other associate nations, it's all about trying to put your best foot forward and, surprise a few people. They may surprise a few people, Scotland. Probably them and the Netherlands are probably probably the two strongest teams out of the associate nations, who are pretty much on the top of the table when it comes to rankings, alongside the other associate countries. The Netherlands and Scotland are pretty much at the top end. So they are one of the strongest teams from the associate contingent in this T20 World Cup, Scotland. So obviously this is their sixth T20 World Cup. They've been to 6 T20 World Cups in the past: 2007, 2009, 2016, 2021, 2022, and this one in 2024. So they've got a lot of experience at T20 World Cup level, Scotland. So it's all about just making sure that they can put a complete performance together, and hopefully they can come out on top and win a few games and get some good results under their belt. Pretty much that's what you expect from all the associate nations, really. So that's pretty much the associate nations, and some concluding thoughts on the associate nations before we move on to preview the full members in this T20 World Cup. Pretty much for the associate countries, it's all about, enjoying the experience, learning from the best, and gaining knowledge and developing and hopefully inspiring the people back home in those various countries to take up the sport and say, hey, this is pretty cool. I want to be a cricketer. And that's what it's all about. That's what it's all about. Usually that's what sport's about. When you see your heroes or you see your role models play in World Cups or big tournaments like this, you want to inspire to be like them and one day hopefully be there yourself. So hopefully that's the case with the associate countries, of course. And obviously, realistically speaking, probably we may not see them go through to the next stage of the Super 8s, but that's beside the point. The point is that they're here. They deserve to be here. Obviously, they've worked so hard to be here, to try and qualify, to be here with the best teams, to have the chance to play on the world stage. I really do hope that all the teams do have a good T20 World Cup and hopefully win a game or two and even surprise a few of the big teams as well. That's what it's all about. So we wish all the associate nations all the best in this T20 World Cup for 2024. Hi, everyone. Make sure you subscribe to the Dibbly Dobbly Podcast YouTube channel and click the bell so you don't miss out on all our episodes and live streams from the ICC T20 World Cup for 2024. If you're watching or listening to this episode on YouTube, let us know in the comments your thoughts on how the associate nations will go in this ICC T20 World Cup for 2024. We would love to hear what you have to say.